In a moment, we'll be speaking to academic Nora Parr about the increasing number of books being translated from Arabic into English. But first, Joseph Hayat takes a look at some of the ones coming out this autumn.
Modern Arabic literature was pretty much unknown to the English-speaking world before 1988. That year, Egyptian writer Naguib Mahfouz was awarded a Nobel Prize, which made publishers realize the significance of contemporary Arabic literature. Since then, many Arabic books have made their way into English. 19 translated works are due for release this autumn, from detective novels to fiction. 4 of them are poetry titles. I Don't Want This Poem to End is the first English translation of poetry by the late Mahmoud Darwish, hailed as the most gifted poet of his generation in the Arab world. The works were discovered by his friends when they visited the poet's home after his death. 7 of the 19 were written by women or include a significant contribution by women. Many of their books discuss current issues. The anthology, 7 Stories from 7 Countries, edited by Sarah Cleave, relates to nations put under the Trump administration travel ban.
How dare he act alone and sign this document to not let these people in our country?
It explores the emotional and personal impact of all restrictions on movement. 1 graphic novel hybrid and 1 sci-fi novel are also being published. Heaven on Earth is written by Jordanian blogger turned novelist Fadi Zegmout. It takes us to the future in a world where eternal youth has become a reality. And early reviews suggest that even though it's a sci-fi novel, it's going to make you cry.
Oriental people are people of language, of words, and their tradition is the words.
Even though Western pop culture is still dominating the global cultural stage, Arab literature is finding its way to readers worldwide.
To speak more about this, I'm joined by academic Nora Parr. Nora, tell me how Arabic literature is perceived in the Western world.
Well, Arabic literature and the Western world have a very long history together. The good news is that Arabic literature is being read more and more by Western audiences. A huge contributing factor to this is the translation movement, which has existed for quite some time, but we are certainly today seeing quite a bloom of new translation houses, translation prizes, and the resulting texts into English that Western readers have more access to. So whereas 2 decades ago, you would see a few works in translation every year, often following the news and news events, so people could get more of an in-depth look behind the scenes. However, today we're getting much larger bodies of literature from individual authors, a whole sort of parts of the canon, and Western readers are getting a much deeper sense of an Arabic literary tradition and the wider context from which single texts emerge from.
Do you think Western audiences expect Arab authors to be political?
To be political? Well, on the one hand, yes, they do, right? Most of the time, a reader will reach for a text in translation because they've heard a lot of events in the news, they see things on television, they hear things on the radio, and they're looking for more information. Oftentimes, the texts are read sort of in political science classes, as part of anthropological reading lists, for students to get more of a sense of the cultural surroundings of war, to try and understand the wider impacts of war. But again, that is changing, and with the translation movement, there are more and more texts translated. We're getting a wider variety of texts available for people to read, and readers in the West are seeing a much more diverse set of texts that are not just political, but in fact having a very complicated discussion about life and culture in the Arab world with each other, and often with Western texts as well.
Can you tell me how the Arab Spring actually affected these representations?
Well, politics always affects representation. So while we can say that not every book is political, you can also, if you really want to, read politics into most texts. Even a lack of politics can be read as a political statement. And since the the sort of 80s and 90s, translation very much has followed politics. And so since the start of the Arab Spring in 2010, 2011, there has been much more Western curiosity about what happened, why did it happen, where is it going, and what will be the conclusion. So this very much has driven Western curiosity and a willingness to read books coming out of the Middle East on themes around the Arab Spring and its aftermath. And it has also resulted in the proliferation of Arabic texts on the spring. And so there is a big move to translate these texts into English right now. We've got the opening of new publishing houses, new translation units, and that's feeding the curiosity of the Western reader.
So do you think that dystopian ideas are becoming more common?
It's hard. They're certainly becoming quite common in literary translation. Dystopian fiction has always, or not always, has been a part of Arabic literature for a very long time. You can trace genealogies back, I suppose, as far as you like, but certainly in the 50s, 60s, 70s, there were texts that were representing situations that were very much dystopian, but that may not have included the futuristic or sci-fi sort of themes that a Western reader assumes to be part of a dystopian narrative. Again, the very definition of dystopian is coming from a Western literary tradition, and Arabic texts have their own ways of communicating sort of pessimistic, grim, futuristic kind of projections that may or may not fall into the category of dystopian. But there certainly has been a rise in the publication of texts dealing with a future world that doesn't look so fantastic.
Well, Nora, it was great having your insight on that. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.